down.
There you go. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey, Mike.
Trying to go to all the places and all the sites. The buildings aren't there anymore, but all the sites where I was born, where I went to grade school, and where I went to high school, and some of the places we lived during my childhood and later on after I got married even. So, and they're all around the Bellwood area. We didn't get too far from home. Right behind my back is where my great-grandpa homesteaded. He had the 80 acres of land that the government gave to him after he had built a sod house. My grandpa was born in a dugout on this piece of land. That's about all I know about it. We'll just go by where my grandpa lived after they moved out of their sod house. They built a large home family, and that's where he raised his family of 8 kids. That's where my dad.
Your dad was born.
I lived, yeah. That's where he was born, yeah. At this next place up here. Go by where I was born and raised until I was, and it was the site where my mom and dad, when they first got married in 1929, that's where they started farming. We had 2 rooms upstairs and 2 rooms downstairs. No basement or anything. It was a real short driveway. The house is right along the road, so, and we had a big barn and typical farm buildings on it. All we can see now is the cornfield out here. So I was born at home in October 3rd, 1933. My mom had my sister. She had her in the hospital, and she wasn't very happy with the treatment or something at the hospital, so she decided to have me at home. She had one sister, Clarice. She was about 3 years older than I was. We always remembered things we had to do together. You know, we had to go out and get cobs and bring it in, so we had something to start the fires with. And I didn't really get into trouble one time because I was up in the barn. I had my BB gun. I was trying to shoot some pigeons up in the barn. Well, here Clarice jumps on my bicycle and starts riding my bicycle, so I just took the BB gun and I thought I was scared. Well, I almost hit her in the eye, hit her in the face, so that didn't go over too good. She won't forget that, and I won't either. This was in 1940, and we had one of the first irrigation wells, it'd be right down here, that anybody had in the county. And so we were irrigating in 1940 already, but there's no such thing as gated pipe. And we used what they called lath boxes. If you know what a lath is, it's they used it when they built houses and they put plaster over these lath. Well, you put 4 of these together, and then we had an open ditch, and you'd bury those lath boxes in the ditch, and that's how the water got from the ditch into your corn rows. And my sister and I, we'd have to, the ones you didn't want running, you plugged it up with cloth, and then you'd go out there and Dad would say, well, plug up 10 of them and take the cloth out of 10 of them so we could, that's the way we irrigated back in those days. So it was quite a job. And my dad, even at that time, I was in 1941, I was 8 years old, and he left me drive the tractor by myself.
Do you know the percent of it?
Oh, yeah. And I said, this used to be my old schoolhouse.
Oh, are you kidding?
Yeah,
Okay. You went to school here, huh?
yeah. From kindergarten to the 4th grade. And I was 4 years old when I started school. That I can remember I was playing down in those trees. There was other trees.
Yep. Actually, this is the second row of shelter trees. We planted 2 rows.
Oh, I see.
Shelter down.
Them old ones probably were all
Well,
gone.
they're still back there on this side. They're still back there. Yeah. And
Made a nice, pretty yard out of it. That's for sure.
thank you.
That's
Did you
what I
go
was.
to school with Dad? I mean, how old are you? What do
Oh
you-
yeah, Dwayne and
Sure.
yeah. They were. He was in the 8th grade.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, I think back as to how it used to be when it was a schoolhouse, and back then the whole building looked so big, you know. 'Cause
Oh,
was
I
just a
know,
little
yeah.
kid. And now we walk in there and we go, oh, this was a library, and then these walls were all gone. It just doesn't seem like it was big enough to hold 20-some kids, you know.
He had kind of a sandbox inside.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
I remember my sister telling me that I was pretty stubborn, and I got underneath there and I wouldn't get out. I just kicked and kicked. They couldn't get me out from under. So that was one of the better schools in the county, I think, for being,
Yeah.
being built. So it's about be a little over 2 miles where we lived. So yeah, we used to walk home from school when the weather was really nice, and we always had some other kids would walk with us part way, but we were the farthest away from school, my sister and I, so we did walk quite a few times. We never walked when it was cold, of course. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Well, my knees are getting a little stiff.
Yeah, there we go.
They're a nice family. We're driving down the road that we used to. Clarice and I used to walk home. One thing I remember about is we were walking home and there was a big cow or a bull in the middle of the road. So we were scared. So we walked into the cornfield so we could get around this animal. Well, I was taking my bat home from school. When I got home, I had lost my bat. So then, the next morning we went out, and I found it in the cornfield. 8 years old when we moved to Bellwood. Born in '33, and we moved in 1941. That was right after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, so I think we moved on December the 11th. Right in front of the home where I lived in from 1941 to 1956. Lived here with my parents. When we moved in the house, it didn't have any electricity or running water or anything, but in the years that followed, we did have, it was modernized where we did have water and running water and electricity. When the REA come through, we got electricity. That had been about in 1942 or 3, something like that. So
Nice.
that was one of the greatest things that ever happened, when the rural people got electricity. Other than that, we had to buy ice to keep our things cold and stuff like that. So, in the towns, they had it earlier, but the rural areas all got it about the same. I think Roosevelt was the president at that time, and the REA was formed, and it still is going yet at this time. Went to the grade school across the road here, and high school while I was living here. And the school was just across the road, so I always came home. And for lunch, I could come home for lunch and go back to school then after lunch. And they always lived with us while they were teaching school. We boarded them, and my mom would get $25 a month for feeding them and boarding them. I think they got $50 for teaching, so they didn't make much money. When I was going to high school, I drove the car in every day. My dad bought his 35 Plymouth. He bought it brand new, paid $600 for it. And he had saved up enough of silver dollars. He paid it with silver dollars. But I used that to drive to school. And then after that, which I shouldn't have done, but we cut the back end out, and I put a pickup box, and I used it for a pickup for a number of years. So I always wished I would have kept it, but it'd have been a nice antique car now. We only had 7 graduate from our class, so
Everyone was popular.
yeah, it was all pretty popular. I love basketball. Pretty good basketball player. But we didn't have football. That was the only sport we had, was basketball. That was a fun time. Didn't have no buses. We just rode with other people in the cars, and we did things. We had one player that his older brother, he'd drive, and we'd always make sure, made out the list that us certain boys always rode with him. And then, well, we did things after the game that you wouldn't dare do nowadays.
Like what?
Well, we'd pick up some beer and drink it on the way home from the game. We could never buy beer, but we had all kinds of guys buy it for us. We drank beer after a game or something. We never did get on the road. I mean, we always stayed right near the town of Bellwood. We never did get out on the roads.
Did your parents ever know that you drank beer after the game?
I don't know. They didn't say anything. I was 15 years old when I graduated from high school. Then I played town team basketball, and that extra year made so much. I could do so much more when I was 16 than I could when I was 15. But after I got out of school, I did a little carpenter work, and then I went to farming with my dad. Then Dad and I farmed together until he passed away in January 31st of 1971 at the age of 65. He never lived long enough to draw
To the right here.
a Social Security check. I have just a section, 600, straight ahead yet, Nathan, 640 acres, which would be a section. Got a quarter here, and there's 3 quarters over here by the highway. I bought this from, there was a Dr. McNally, this farm here, there's a Dr. McNally that owned a lot of land around here. The story is, he lived in Bellwood. He come from Michigan, where his hometown was. And anyway, he was a doctor in Bellwood. Well, this Henflinger, Mr. Henflinger, he owned this land, and he got sick, and Dr. McNally took care of him. But then he died, and Dr. McNally married Mrs. Henflinger, and then got all this land. So the stories go around, you know, did he really die on his own?
Did you buy it from them then?
Yes, this farm, yeah, the Doc McNally. See, this farm didn't have any irrigation on it, and the story was out that there wasn't any water there. You couldn't get irrigation. So I went down there before the farm was sold, and I asked him about irrigation. Well, he said, we never tried to get water there. Take a right here. And so I bought it, and I got put in a well right away, and I had water. So got $367.50. That was a pretty low price, but that's a long time ago. Now it's up to $10,000 an acre. Then I bought some later on for $900, and then I went up to $1,100. And I was always satisfied with what I paid for it, because
Good investment.
yeah, it turned out to be a good investment. This is 3/4 of a mile, and that's where we lived for them 24 years, raising our kids. Man, there are some nice ears of corn on there. He's taking pictures of this great corn crop. So, okay. See you later. Bye. Yeah, if we have a good fall, it's going to be a real good harvest, I think. As long as we don't get winds. Winds the only thing that can hurt us now, or hail. But I guess I've never seen it look any better what it is, but it isn't in the bend yet, The house is right there. Of course, it was tore down and burned. One bathroom was put in just before we moved there. There's quite a few times when the bathtub had ice in the bottom of it, and it would get so cold there. And there's our old corn crib. The barn has been tore down, and we built the bins here. This is where I raised hogs and cattle, and for them 20-some years. We lived in this same section, Joanne and I did, until 1981 when we built this new house. We moved to this house in 1981. We had it built, yeah. We had talked about it a lot earlier, but I don't know why we didn't. We should have done it earlier, I think, but that's the way it goes sometimes. All the trees that around here we planted, so they've been in here since 1981. There was a lot of trees along the road, which we cut them all down, and so trees can really grow a lot faster than you think. When you plant them, you never think they're going to get tall, but they do that. But it used to be the old church at Savannah, and Savannah was a small town right east of here, and so they moved that church here, that old church, and they made it into a house. And so
you tore that down to build this house?
We rented it out to a family, and then when we decided to build, I tore it down, and I still have lumber from it yet.
Do you feel like it was kind of sacrilege to tear down a church and build a house?
Yeah, probably was, yeah. I had some big trees along here, so I had him come. I wanted to saw one down, so I had him come. I had a tractor across the road, and I had a cable up there. I told him to, when it started falling, to pull it over. Well, it didn't work out that way, and here the tree fell toward the house, but it didn't hit the house. Some of the branches hit the house. I thought sure it was going to have the windows broke out and everything. Patty, Michael, Sherry, Sandy, and Carla. I remember when Patty was born, because it was awful cold, and she was born in January. We took her up to the hospital in David City, which they only had one nurse there, so at the time, and so they had to call another one in. They were short-handed when Joanne went into labor, and I had to hold the mask over her mouth, over her nose, until the nurse got there. So it was, and she was in there for 5 days, and the bill was less than $100. Well, I can't remember for sure, but I guess I was. That's hard to say how I felt. I guess I felt great. But then on the way home, I got within 3 miles from home, and the rods went out on my car, and so I had to walk to a neighbor's along the highway, and I knew who lived there. It was an elderly lady. I knocked on the door, and nobody come to the door, and so then I called out her name, which was Mrs. Morbaugh, and she come to the door right away, because after she knew it was somebody that knew her. And so then I had to call my brother-in-law. He come out with me, and I spent the whole time helping put a new engine in my car while Joanne was in the hospital. And she was in there for 5 days. So besides, at the time I was milking cows, and so it was quite a time.
Was there ever a time where you thought about moving somewhere else, or did you ever want to move somewhere else?
No, we never. We were pretty well tied into farming, and that's where we just stayed. I'd say I can't even think of anybody that that quit farming. There might have been a few, but I don't remember who they were. Everybody just when their dads got too old to farm, they just kind of took over. I think that was great, living in this area, because we knew all the neighbors, and we had friends from school, and they were having kids too, so everybody was having kids that we went to school with. So and there was a lot of them that farmed, and so it was different times than what they are now, but